Hi there. I'm Cindy Linden, and this is a cook-along podcast, Quick Bite. I want to talk about cast iron. Now, for those of you who already cook with cast iron, maybe a lot of this will be old information for you. But if you are intimidated by cast iron, or you want to cook with cast iron, but you don't know how to because everything you've heard sounds too complicated, then this is the podcast for you. So many times I've been in thrift stores and seen perfectly good cast iron pans in the cooking utensils section that have been rusted. And people just leave them there because who wants rusty iron in their kitchen, right? The thing is, if you find them there, they're a really good deal. They'll be very cheap because they look like they're not any good. They are actually as good as new. You just have to clean them up a little bit and do what's called seasoning, which is so easy. It's not intimidating at all. It's something anybody can do and will make you a perfect non-stick pan. Let me say that again. It's important. A non-stick pan. Cast iron is not what you might have imagined, where everything sticks to it and you have to scrape like heck to get it out. It is, in fact, a perfect non-stick surface. And the reason for that is because when you season it right, you're creating what's actually a plastic surface. It's called biopolymer, and it happens when you heat oil just past its smoke point, and it turns the surface of your pan into slick plastic, and things won't stick to it. Cast iron doesn't warp. It's great for browning things or making things crispy, like potatoes, for instance. If you want crispy hash browns, that's the way to do it. Cast iron companies now are making pans pre-seasoned so that you don't have to do anything to them when you buy them new. But here I'm telling you how to fix an old one that you may be tempted to throw out or that somebody else did throw out. I know people have even found these in their apartment complex garbage. It's silly. They're fabulous pans. Not only are they nonstick, they're really pretty easy to clean. And that may sound contrary to everything you believe about cast iron, but it's true. The other nice thing about it is that you can move it from stovetop to oven, which means you can start something searing and then finish it off in a hot oven. It's great for steak, for instance. The only downside is it's really heavy, and sometimes that's tricky. But I'm going to tell you the how-tos and the whys and let you go decide for yourself. I really think everyone should own a cast iron pan, and I have 3 right now. I have a little tiny one that'll cook like 1 egg. I think it's 3.5 inches. I have one that's a little bigger. It's about 6 inches. And actually, I got the 3.5 inch one by mistake online because I thought I was getting a 6 inch. But, it's proven useful. The 6 inch is just for sauteing or frying little amounts of things quickly. And then I have a 10 incher that I use for anything that'll fit in there. Honestly, I only use a different skillet, which would be my big, lovely stainless steel skillet, which also was inexpensive. I'll tell you about that another day. Anything that will actually fit in my cast iron, I put in the cast iron. It doesn't matter whether you're going to boil it or you're going to put tomatoes in it. It doesn't matter. You can't hurt that plastic surface beyond repair. Really, you can't. You don't want to marinate in it. That's the only thing. You don't want to put something acidic in there like vinegar or wine or something and let it just sit for a day. That's not a good plan. So first, let's talk about seasoning the pan. Let's say you just found a rusty old cast iron pan at the Goodwill. And because of what I'm telling you here, you decide to bring it home. Here's what you're going to do with it. First, you're going to scrub the heck out of it. You want a steel wool pad or something really bristly, like a metal brush, to get all that rust out of there. You want it just scrubbed clean until it just looks kind of raw and rough, and there's no sign of the rust anymore. Then you have to let it dry, completely dry. And you could do this on your stovetop if you want. Just turn it on to a low heat setting and put the pan on it and let it dry. And then take it off and let it cool completely, okay? The next thing is you want to get out some oil and a paper towel. What you want is an oil with a high smoke point, but not a super high smoke point. For instance, canola oil, vegetable oil, rapeseed oil, those all have a smoke point of 400 degrees. Smoke point, of course, means the point where the oil begins to really smoke. Which is why you don't use something like olive oil, because it's got a way too low smoke point, and you got to get the pan hot enough that it's going to turn oil into plastic and have it fuse to the pan. It's this very cool scientific thing that happens, and the pan has to be pretty hot to do it. You could also use sunflower oil or corn oil, which have a smoke point of 450. Do not use avocado oil. Whereas it's got a really high smoke point, it's too high. It's like 520 degrees, something like that. And to get your oven hotter than that could be tricky. Decide which oil you want to use or what you have on hand, and then set your oven for about 25 degrees higher than that smoke point. You want the whole oven hot. So for instance, I'm going to season a pan today. I'm going to use canola oil because it's what I have in my kitchen right now. Smoke point is 400 degrees. I need to set my oven for at least 425. And I'll probably go to 450 because why not? I always do more of whatever whenever I can do more. Then with your cooled pan, you're going to put maybe a teaspoon of the canola oil. Depends on the size of your pan, of course. I'm going to be doing a 10-inch pan. Put like a teaspoon of the oil in the pan and wipe it all around the surface with the paper towel. You want it really thin on there. You should be able to see that it's been oiled, but not like if you wiped your finger across it, it would feel like you just fried chicken or hash browns or something. It should not have that much oil on it. And then with the paper towel that's already got oil on it, you can turn the pan over and wipe the backside as well. Don't go crazy on this because you don't really need the outside nonstick. You just want it kind of looking nice and shiny. So wipe it all over all surfaces. Now take a couple of sheets of aluminum foil. Really, it may only take one. Put it on the bottom rack of your oven. And once it's preheated to the right temperature and has been hot at that temperature for, say, 15 minutes, take the oiled pan and turn it upside down and put it on the next rack up. In other words, probably your middle rack of your oven. Close the oven, set the timer for an hour, and walk away. This is how hard seasoning is. You wipe the pan with oil, you put it in the oven, you walk away. Very simple, okay? At the end of the hour, you go in and you turn the oven off and leave the pan in there. You don't need to open the oven. You don't need to do anything. You're just going to let that plastic now finish off and cool so that you can handle the pan safely. When you take the pan out, after it's completely cooled, run your finger over the surface and see if there's any sticky spots. If there are, that means you used a little too much oil. It was too thick in those spots. And there's a remedy for that. Two remedies, actually. You can just cook in it until that goes away. Or if it bugs you and you really want a nice smooth surface that doesn't have any sticky points, here's how to fix that. Put the room temperature pan on your stove burner. Spray the pan with some cooking spray. Turn that burner on to high and just stand there for a few minutes until it starts to smoke. Once it starts to really smoke, turn the burner off and again, walk away until it cools down. And you probably at that point will have eliminated all your sticky spots. That's sort of like a quick reseasoning process, which I also recommend after you wash the pan. But let's talk about washing the pan, because that's probably the other nightmare you've heard about, is that they're impossible to get clean or you have to really baby them. Wrong on both points. If you season the pan, it will just wipe out. Get yourself a scrubber with an abrasive surface to it. And after you're done cooking with your pan, it may look like things are stuck to it. It's all going to come off really easily. You're going to put a little water in there and you're going to let it sit for 5 to 15 minutes. No, it will not rust the pan. You put plastic inside the pan, remember? Then you get your scrubby surface scrubber and you just hold it under the running water and gently scrub with the scrubber, and you're going to find everything just wipes off. Wipes off like a dry erase board. It's so easy to clean. But let's say you have a little trouble. Let's say something you cooked was really sticky, okay? Or you burned it on there and now it doesn't want to come off. Put water back in it and let it sit a little longer. If after another 15 minutes it's just really hard and you can't, even with some sort of plastic scraper, nothing is coming off, take the pan with the water in it, put it on the stove, bring it to a boil, let it simmer for just a few minutes, take it off the stove, let the water cool down, and then go back to your rough-sided scrubber, and it should wipe completely out. Now, the thing about working that hard is that sometimes it'll take a little of your seasoned surface with it. So we go back to the step 2 follow-up, easy, quick seasoning, which is after you've washed it, stick it back on the stove. Turn the stove on to dry the pan. The thing is, it has to be completely dry. You can't just wipe it out because you don't want any moisture because you're going to put oil in it. And the moisture will keep the oil from sitting on the pan, right? So be sure it's completely dry. Spray it with that canola oil stuff again. Turn it on and let it come to a really good smoke. Turn it off. And you've effectively reseasoned your pan. Now, sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes things happen. Sometimes you can tell by looking at the surface of the pan that it's no longer shiny. It no longer has its specially cured surface. You scrub it out the same way you did the first time, although it won't be rusty, so it'll be easier. You put that teaspoon of oil thinly wiped around all the insides, and you do it in the oven again the same way you did the first time. It only takes an hour. And then you've fixed your pan. It's completely repaired for future use. It's back to being nonstick. Other kinds of nonstick pans, they're only a nonstick in the beginning until the surface wears off. With cast iron, you just replace the surface. It's an easy process, and it's so worth it. Cast iron heats evenly. It does a better job of browning than any other kind of pan. Please don't be intimidated by it. Go out and find yourself a cheap, maybe even intentionally unseasoned cast iron pan. Cast iron is inexpensive even when it's new and pre-seasoned. But learning how to do this is worth your time. And you will love your pan. I promise. The only thing bad about it is that it's heavy. And as wrists age, it gets harder to manipulate a heavy pan. But other than that, it probably will become your favorite pan. I'll bet you talk to people who cook all the time who say, oh my God, I love my cast iron. It's my favorite pan. You can be that person. All you got to do is follow the advice in this podcast. Tell your friends about it so they go out and buy cast iron pans, and you can make this a community event. Although you're all going to be in your own kitchens, you can do this on Zoom together. It's a cast iron seasoning party on Zoom. Check out the cookalongpodcast.com website for more fun tips, interesting blogs, some great recipes you can make in the newly seasoned cast iron pan. There's a brand new podcast every Saturday with quick bites every other week, and then brand new recipes the weeks in between. And until next time, happy cooking.